You're 12, and they call you Queen. The crown is too heavy for your skull. It slips when you move, presses against your temples like it's trying to reshape your thoughts. Your feet don't touch the floor. They swing softly, silently, above the marble. Too small for the throne they've placed you on. Your fingers, blue at the tips, from cold or from fear. The air smells like incense and roses, but underneath it, metal, blood, a sharpness no one dares name. Velvet drapes the room, thick and suffocating. The silence is velvet too, heavy, soft, crushing. Voices float in from beyond the chamber doors, lutes, flutes, the low beat of ceremonial drums. The kingdom is celebrating. Inside you cannot move, not because you're frozen, because you've been trained not to. Your hands are folded in your lap just right. Your back is straight, even though it aches. Your face is calm, even though your stomach turns. Whispers surround you, ladies adjusting your gown, priests murmuring prayers. A servant kneels to adjust the hem of your robe and doesn't meet your eyes. No one looks at you like a child, because today you're not. Today you're a symbol, a body wearing gold, a vessel trimmed in lace. You're 12, and they call you Queen. But you were not chosen because you were special. You were chosen because you were small, because you were silent, because you could bleed. She was 3 the first time they measured her, not her height, but her spine. Straight as a blade, they said. Good. Queens must stand tall, even when they're breaking. At 4 they began weighing her meals. 2 figs, 1 piece of bread, water with herbs. She asked for honey once. The nurse shook her head. Sweet things spoil the blood. At 5 she was taught how to walk, not just forward, but carefully, quietly, like someone watching, always waited for her to trip. She wasn't raised, she was rehearsed. Every blink, every breath, a performance. They folded her hands in her lap like scripture, counted her steps like sins, measured the angle of her neck when she bowed, and corrected it with a cane when it dipped too low. At 6 they burned her first dress. She dirtied it climbing a garden wall. The flames crackled louder than her tears. That was lesson number 1. You are not a girl, you are a relic. By 7, the word play vanished from her world. She learned treaties, lineages, curses, cures. She memorized a family tree back 10 generations. She could recite every marriage, every heir, every death in childbirth. And then came the prophecy. Born under a red moon. A sign, they whispered. Pale skin, black eyes, a cord around her neck that she escaped. She's meant for greatness, they said. She will restore the line. The bloodline had thinned. Too many stillbirths. Too many sickly boys. But her? She was strong, she was quiet, she survived. And survival, in royal families, was never an accident. They called her chosen, not blessed, chosen, because that word means picked, pointed at, prepared. She asked questions once. Why can't I ride horses? Why must I sleep alone? Why can't I visit my mother's grave? At 8, a tutor slapped her for asking what a womb was. She bled from the lip. No one flinched. At 9, she wrote a poem. It was about a bird. Her governess burned it in front of her. Queens don't daydream, she said. By 10, she'd stopped asking, stopped writing, stopped dreaming. Every mirror she looked into whispered back the same thing. You're not a girl. You're a symbol. Every doll she owned wore a crown. Every lesson ended with silence. Every night she lay still in bed, staring at the ceiling, counting the angels carved into the wood, not praying, not hoping, just trying to remember what her own voice used to sound like. They weren't raising her to rule. They were hollowing her, making space, for a crown, for a man, for a child she hadn't met yet, but would be told to love. And as they stitched gold lions into her sleeves, as they traced her waist with measuring tape, as they charted the width of her hips month after month, they didn't see a child. They saw a future, a prophecy, a body, waiting to serve. She wasn't becoming a queen, she was being carved into one, from the inside out. The drums begin before dawn, low, measured, dull, the kind of sound you feel in your chest before you understand it in your ears. The palace smells of roses and ash. 1,000 candles burn along the hallways. The smoke rises like ghosts. She's bathed in milk, scrubbed until her skin turns pink, hair brushed until her scalp stings. Paint applied beneath her eyes to keep them open, even when all she wants to do is shut the world out. The gown is ivory, laced so tightly she can't breathe without counting. Each thread a cage, each stitch a promise she never agreed to. Lions on her sleeves, serpents at her throat. Gold so heavy she feels like she's already drowning. The room is full of women. None speak. They smile gently, like this is something to be proud of, like they're handing her something holy. Outside, the trumpets sound, and she knows it's time. She walks the corridor alone, each step rehearsed, each blink calibrated. Her legs tremble, but she doesn't fall. She enters the great hall. Silence. Hundreds of eyes. Priests, nobles, generals, poets. They rise as she approaches, not for her, but for who she belongs to. And then he appears. Her brother. Older by 4 years. She remembers him. In the garden. Reading stories. Tucking wildflowers into her hair. But today, he's not her brother. He's the king. The crown sits steady on his head. The robe trails behind him like fire, and his smile isn't the one she remembers. He holds out his hand. She takes it. Warm, familiar, too familiar. They guide them to the altar. A priest begins to speak, words heavy with tradition, heavy with expectation. She hears none of it. All she hears is the thump of her heart against the inside of her ribs. All she feels is the embroidery on her sleeves cutting into her arms. Tiny suns, tiny lions, symbols of power, symbols of purity, scratching her every time she moves. She's told to kneel. She does. Told to rise. She does. Told to speak. And she opens her mouth, letting the vow fall from her lips like something spoiled. To honour, to serve, to unite the blood. She stares just past his face, at the candle behind his shoulder. She focuses on the flame, pretends it's blinding, pretends it's the only thing in the world. Because if she looks into his eyes, she might remember who he used to be, and that will break her. The priest raises his arms, the chamber hums, and then the kiss. Not a brother's kiss, not a husband's kiss, a king's kiss. Slow, calculated, final. She tastes wine and fear. The crowd erupts in cheers, laughter, applause. A poet begins reciting lines written days before. She doesn't hear them. Something slips. Her veil. It falls from her head like a whisper. A servant catches it before it hits the floor. And that is the image the court painter will use. The moment they'll sew into tapestries. The child queen in white and gold. Smiling faintly, veil floating behind her. Like a ghost. They won't paint the shaking hands, they won't show the blue fingertips, they won't stitch the truth. They'll call it divine, they'll call it fate, they'll call it love. But what it really is a sentence. The chamber is lit with candles, dozens of them, flickering, fluttering, throwing gold shadows across the velvet walls. The bed is too big, the sheets smell of lavender and something bitter. She's been bathed again, brushed, powdered, draped in a nightdress someone else picked. Her braid has been loosened, just enough to fall over her shoulder. She doesn't know why. but she knows it's for him. She sits on the edge of the mattress, knees together, arms tight around her legs, back straight, eyes forward. The door creaks open, he enters, her brother, her husband, her king. He smiles, she doesn't. He calls her my lioness, but she feels like prey. He moves slowly, soft steps on the rug, a kiss on her cheek, a hand on hers. He thinks the quiet makes it kinder. He thinks the slowness makes it gentle. It doesn't. She doesn't pull away. That was lesson number 2. Never resist, never tremble, never cry where they can hear you. The bed doesn't creak, but she does. And when he leaves, hours later, or maybe just minutes, she stays exactly where she is, eyes open, hands clenched, staring at the canopy above. The candles have burned low. The sheets are damp, lavender, and sweat. The next morning, the palace is already celebrating. There's music in the hall, toasts raised in crystal, a new poem, the moonlit union of twin flames. Ladies giggle behind fans. A bishop blesses their bedroom door. Her aunt, now a mother-in-law, says she glows like a wife. No one asks why her hands won't stop shaking. This becomes the rhythm of her days. Silk in the morning, silence at night. She's told when to eat, when to smile, when to speak, when to stop. There are no mirrors in her chamber. She hasn't seen her own face in weeks, only paintings. And those don't show the bruises. Her bookshelf is empty now, the scrolls replaced with scripture. She used to write at night, little lines of poetry beneath her pillow. But one night a maid found it, read it, smiled. The next day the journal was gone, and so was the maid. She never wrote again. Each morning she dresses in gold, because that's what he likes. Each night she undresses when he enters, because that's what he expects. They call her devoted. They say she is divine, but she is vanishing. Not all at once, just in pieces. A word here, a breath there. A small life, slowly erased by royal duty. She begins hiding a piece of bread under her pillow every night. She doesn't know why, only that it feels like the last thing that's hers. Sometimes, when the palace sleeps, she whispers to herself, just to hear a voice that isn't his. But even that begins to fade, because her body isn't hers, her voice isn't hers, her future was never hers, and now, not even the silence belongs to her, it belongs to the crown. The first time she vomits, it's into her sleeve. No one sees, no one asks. She wipes her mouth on the lace and keeps walking. By the end of the week, the palace knows. The bishop calls it a miracle. The court physician bows deeper than ever. He calls it destiny fulfilled. She is congratulated, not comforted. A child growing inside her, and they celebrate like it's already wearing a crown. She is 12. But no one says that. They say she is blessed. They say she is the chosen vessel. The kingdom's future cradled in her womb. She stops eating full meals, not by choice. They control her diet now, again. Not for her, but for the heir. Her robes are loosened around the waist. The swelling is subtle. A court painter begins sketching her with palms folded over her belly. They call it the Queen's Promise. She feels the weight differently. Not royal, not sacred, just heavy. Her bones ache, her skin pulls, her dreams twist. She wakes in the night soaked in sweat, breath caught in her throat, a flutter beneath her ribs, like a trapped bird. It's real. The child is real, and it belongs to her brother. She asks to see her mother's grave. They say no. Too far, too risky, too many eyes. She asks if her brother will visit her less now. They say no. A king must be present. It gives strength to the womb. She places her hand on her stomach, feels nothing, whispers something. To herself, or to the child, she doesn't know. They assign a midwife to her chamber. She does not speak unless spoken to, only nods, only writes down numbers, weight, heart rate, swelling. The priest visits daily now. He brings scripture, reads verses about holy mothers and sacred blood. He does not say the word pregnant. That would be vulgar. They speak in metaphors, in riddles, in prophecy. She begins keeping the piece of bread under her pillow again, just in case the baby comes hungry, just in case she doesn't make it through. No one notices she's quieter than before, because no one listens. They speak of her like a symbol, a monument, an answered prayer. They do not see her swollen ankles, or the red rims of her eyes, or the fingernails she digs into her own palm when no one's watching. They see the throne, the future, the heir. They say she is radiant. They say she is divine. They say she glows. And maybe she does, but not from joy, not from pride, from fever, from nausea, from something deep inside her screaming for help and being smothered by silk. No one says she is 12, only that she is glowing. It starts with pressure, not sharp, not sudden, but slow, creeping, heavy, like something pulling her apart from the inside. She tries to stand, her knees buckle. The midwife catches her before she hits the floor. "Too early," someone whispers. "Too soon." But the baby doesn't care. The chamber is cleared, windows shut, curtains drawn, a brazier lit beside the bed, thick with herbs meant to calm her. They don't. The scent makes her gag. She's lowered onto the mattress, hands guiding her like she's a doll, positioned, prepared. There are 6 women in the room. None of them speak her name, only titles, only instructions, only prayers. The pain builds in waves. Her fingers claw at the sheets. Her lips crack. Her feet push against the mattress like she's trying to escape her own body. She can't scream. She's not allowed to scream. Only breathe. Only bear it. Only break in silence. Outside, her brother is not pacing, not weeping. He's speaking with his advisors about the child's name, about the coronation, about how to frame the moment in gold. Inside, she's unraveling. The baby won't turn. They press on her stomach, force her legs wider. Whispers buzz in the air, not in comfort, but in calculation. She calls out, not in words, in something older, deeper, a sound that echoes off the chamber walls and dies there. She calls for her mother. No one comes. Her body shakes. Her eyes roll back. Her lips move. But no one hears what she says. And then, a cry. Not hers. The child. Alive. Wrapped in gold-threaded linen before she even sees his face. Lifted. Blessed. Taken. The midwives turn back to her. But it's too late. She's still. Not soft. Not peaceful. Just still. They cover her with velvet, the same colour as the crown she never grew into. Outside, the bells do not toll. The poets begin writing. The court raises their goblets. The bishop calls it a divine transition, a queen for an heir. They call it a miracle. But her bed is still warm with death. The bells ring, but not for her. They ring for the child. The cradle is paraded through the halls, silver, silk-lined, embroidered with scripture. The court erupts in celebration. Wine flows through the marble corridors. Trumpets wail from the towers. A poem is read aloud. A son for the sovereign, a future for the flame. No one mentions the girl who bore him. No one mentions the blood, the pain, the silence. They rename her in death. The mother sovereign, not queen, not child, not victim, just function, just title. Her portrait is commissioned. She's painted seated, serene, child in arms. But she never held him. That part is fiction. The tapestries show a woman glowing with holy purpose, veil perfect, smile gentle, No bruises, no screaming. Her age, omitted. The chamber she died in, renovated. The midwives, sworn to secrecy. The grave, unmarked, tucked in the corner of the royal garden, beneath a nameless stone. They say flowers bloom there unnaturally early. They say that means she was chosen, blessed, favoured. But they don't speak her name. Not in hymns, not in records, not in stories told to future queens. She becomes a footnote, a symbol, a soft blur in a long line of golden ghosts. The throne shines brighter than ever, but it was built on a grave. The boy grows quickly. They say his eyes are his mother's. They say his temper is his father's. They say his future is divine. No one tells him the truth. No one tells him she died calling for a woman already buried. No one tells him she was crowned before she could finish growing. No one tells him her blood still stains the cradle they polished for his parade. He grows into a king, and her name fades like dust from the edge of a book, but not completely. Time forgets, but never perfectly. A letter, folded inside an old priest's robe, unsigned, almost lost. 8 words scrawled in faded ink. She screamed, and none of us moved a ledger in the palace registry. Pages numbered 126 to 128. 127 is missing. A statue in the garden, headless, cracked. The plaque beneath it reads Queen of Peace, but the name is chipped away, worn out or erased. You begin to piece her together in fragments. A corner of a tapestry, a lullaby with no known origin, a prayer whispered by nurses but never written down. She was never meant to be remembered, not like this. They built her into a legend, but they stripped out the truth. They gave her a title, but stole her voice. And now, here you are, listening, searching, remembering. They never meant for you to find her, but you did. And now you can't unknow her. She wasn't just a queen. She wasn't a miracle. She wasn't a sacrifice. She was a girl, trapped in silk, drowning in gold, buried beneath the weight of a throne she never asked for. And she is still here, not in the history books, not in the royal line, but in the silence that lingers, in the questions that weren't supposed to be asked, in the breath you're holding now. Remember her, not as a symbol, but as a child who should have been allowed to live. You've walked her halls, felt the cold marble under bare feet, heard the silence pressed between velvet curtains, smelled the blood behind the incense. You've worn her crown, even for a moment, too heavy, too sharp, too wrong. You've tasted her fear, traced her trembling fingers, listened to the prayers no one answered. You know now what they wanted buried. You've seen what they painted over, what they erased, what they renamed. She was not holy. She was not chosen. She was not a queen. She was a girl. And someone should have told her no. If her voice echoed inside you, if your chest felt heavy where her story lived, don't let her disappear again. Subscribe to remember her. Share to make sure no other story like this is buried again. Because memory is resistance, and truth is the only crown she ever deserved.